Chapter 86 Planning the Chimera. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The Chimera is a very bloodthirsty and violent magical creature native to Greece. It has the head of a lion, the body of a goat, and the tail of a fire dragon. Because this creature is so dangerous, the Ministry of Magic classifies it as the highest level creature, and their eggs are also Class A prohibited trade items. Hearing that Levin planned to hunt this dangerous creature, Hermione on the side became anxious. I can't believe you actually want to do such a dangerous thing. That's a Chimeraru. An XXXXX level dangerous object from the Ministry of Magic. The Ministry of Magic's danger rating evaluates a creature's aggressiveness, not its actual danger. Levin argued, the Acromantula is also a XXXXX level dangerous creature, the same level as the Chimera and the fire dragon. But believe me, I have met them in the Forbidden Forest. As long as the appropriate magic is used, even a little wizard can be defeated easily, and it is much safer than the fire dragon. 310. You are quibbling. Hermione's hands shook angrily. That's not Norbert, nor is it a three-headed hell dog, nor is it Fawn. It's an extremely dangerous magical creature. As she spoke, she hurriedly found a book from the bookshelf, spread it out in front of Levin, and pointed at the Chimera in the picture, her eyes flashing with fear. In the entire history of wizards, there is only one record of successfully killing a Chimera, and this wizard later fell off his Pegasus and died because of exhaustion. Hermione held up the book, almost poking Levin in the eye. Levin sighed, since being cute is not enough, we can only present the facts and make sense. Well, Hermione, maybe you're right, chimeras are terrifying magical creatures. But is it difficult for us to be weak chickens who are allowed to be slaughtered? That's right, Shirley also said. You can rest assured, little girl, I will protect him. I'm not a little girl. Hermione looked at the other person's erect rabbit, then looked at her own poached eggs, and suddenly became angry. Also, the book says that magical creatures like chimeras have strong magic resistance, and ordinary spells can't do anything to them. How are you going to deal with them? That's why Ciri has practiced the spell strike technique for so long, and that's why I made this arcane sword before coming up with this plan. Levin pushed the arcane sword forward. Hermione was stunned for a moment, feeling that it seemed to make sense. Besides, let me tell you a secret. Seeing that the other party was about to relent, Levin struck while the iron was hot. Aren't you always curious about why I feel so much better off after the Christmas vacation and why my whole wardrobe has changed? I didn't tell you at that time because I was afraid that if I told you, you would think you were bragging. Now it seems that I can't dispel your worries without showing my strength. Then, he briefly described the process of eradicating the poacher organization with Tonks Road. That is to say, you defeated a group of dark wizards half a year ago, right? Hermione suddenly realized. No wonder you changed completely after that. No wonder Sister Tonks helped you guarantee the purchase of this house. I didn't expect you to have such an interesting experience at that time. Shirley was also in high spirits. It seems that being with you is indispensable for such exciting things. Since Levin was able to defeat a group of dark wizards at that time, it cannot be said that it was very dangerous to face the Chimera beast. Hermione figured this out and had no reason to stop her. But why do you have to hunt such a dangerous creature? But even if she couldn't stop it, she still had some questions she wanted to know. I need certain materials from the Chimera to refine a magic potion. Levin thought for a while and finally revealed part of the truth. That's a potion about Animagus transformation. Animagus. Speaking of this, Hermione is no longer sleepy, she has always been interested in this kind of cutting-edge magic. Are you going to perform Animagus? I heard that it is a very complicated and difficult process. Not only do you need to hold a mandrake leaf in your mouth for a month, but you also have to wait until the stormy weather to get it. Complete the ritual. Professor McGonagall said that this process is very dangerous, and people may become obsessed and unable to return to normal humans. She asked us not to try it in private. Professor McGonagall is right, it is indeed a cumbersome and dangerous ritual, so I am trying to simplify the whole process. Levin said, his tone full of temptation. And a certain material on the Chimera is exactly what I need for my experiment. If I succeed, you won't have to go through so much trouble if you want to learn Animagus in the future. Is that so? After hearing Levin's explanation, Hermione, who had no reason to continue to block her, immediately stepped back. Since it's for this reason, then I can't stop you. After convincing the worried little witch, Levin's hunting plan will be officially launched. Early the next morning, after breakfast, Levin is sitting in the living room, bathing and burning incense. The incense burner this time is entirely made of bronze, with dragons and phoenixes carved on it. It's so exquisite. What are placed around are not simple ivory handicrafts, but 4 complete ivory carvings. After the economic situation improved, Levin's ritual equipment was upgraded, always choosing the most expensive one. He knows one thing very well: the only advantage of cheap products is that they are cheap, the only disadvantage of expensive products is that they are expensive. Levin sat cross-legged in front of the ceremony table and began to perform the ritual of understanding the legend. Knowledge of legends. Look for the Chimera beast for me, the closer the better. As the smoke filled the air, it didn't take long for Levin to reveal his goal this time. Cornwall, the village of Dingworth, the seaside, the cave, is it so close to us? And there seem to be traces of someone in that cave. Cornwall borders Devon, where Levin is located, to the east, the English Channel to the south, and the Atlantic Ocean to the west and north, and after crossing the English Channel, there is Europe. The origin of the Chimera is Greece in Europe. Through this series of clues, Levin immediately made a guess. Chimeraman alone generally does not have the ability to cross the English Channel and land in the Great Ean. Combined with the cave that may be used as a hiding place for 5.6, and the human traces in the cave, Levin guessed that there were probably poachers, smugglers, or something who brought a Chimera here. Although chimeras are dangerous and difficult to kill, but it is still possible to temporarily trap it in some way. Chimera eggs have a very high price on the black market. However, no matter what the truth is, it will not affect my determination to hunt. Now that we have found our target, Siri, let's set off. Okay, 5/4, 17/29. Thanks to Mr. Zui Hongchen Zanyu for the reward. It's not easy to get a new book on the shelves. I'd like to ask for a wave of custom orders, a wave of monthly flower tickets, reviews and rewards. If you have tickets, please give them to me as the author. This is really important to me. Chapter 87 Coastal Commotion. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Regarding the hunting of chimeras, although Levin spoke confidently in front of Hermione, but that didn't stop him from making preparations before setting off. In addition to regular potions such as the uplifting potion to restore wounds and the magic potion to restore magic power, Levin also secretly brought 2 bottles of Elixir of Life. This medicine made from the Philosopher's Stone not only prolongs life, but also has therapeutic effects on the living dead and flesh and bones. In case of an accident, it is the protection for both of them. Finally, Levin and Siri each shouldered a long sword, put their broomsticks into their bags, and then walked towards the fireplace. Shirley passed through the Fleur network first and had already gone to Cornwall. Then let's set off, fun. In front of the burning fireplace, Levin turned back and said goodbye to Hermione. Well, remember to be careful and don't get hurt. Hermione waved her hand in concern. Don't worry, Hermione, I won't leave you alone in an empty room. After saying that, Levin also poured the Fleur powder into the fireplace, took a step forward, and disappeared into it. Hermione was left alone 15 sitting in the living room, staring steadily at the direction in which the boy disappeared. This is the first time for a girl to feel so dissatisfied with her own powerlessness. In the women's restroom last Halloween, she had to hide aside and watch a boy fight a troll. The last time in the restricted area, she had to return with Ronald and watch the boy go to fight Voldemort. This time, she could only stay alone in the tower and watch the boy hunt the Chimera. Of course, unlike the previous 2 times, this time he is not alone. He also has a helper by his side, the violent muscular girl Cyrilla, but that person wasn't her, Hermione. Is it difficult for her to always rely on the boy and stay under his protective umbrella? At this moment, Hermione made up her mind. Levin Green, this boy, has only known him for less than a year, and I have witnessed him accomplish all kinds of miracles. He is destined not to be an ordinary person. And what about yourself? She also wanted to be by his side, as a friend, as something more. Therefore, she must work hard, whether it is fighting or studying. This is not only for self-satisfaction, but also to be able to fight side by side with him at critical moments. Levin had no idea what Miss Granger was thinking after he left. After arriving in Cornwall via Flo, he and Ciri mounted their brooms and flew towards Dingworth village. It is indeed a very refreshing thing to soar through the air at extreme speeds. The speed limit of Nimbus 2001 was very high. It took the two of them less than 2 hours to reach Dingworth village and saw the coastline from a distance. Mounds of moss rise from the deep green waters, the sand turns surprisingly white, and magical serpentine rocks sparkle in the sunlight. Looking from a distance, you can still see many tourists coming and going on the beach. In order to avoid trouble, the two landed on the ground a few hundred meters away, put away their brooms, and walked towards the coast, walking along the rocky path. Levin was finally able to see the coast hidden behind the cliffs. This beach is covered with rocks and is backed by a towering cliff. There is also a church said to be from the 14th century on the top of the cliff. "How far are we from the cave?" Ciri asked. "It's about 200 to 300 meters further along the coast. However, fate always seems to have some surprises. That I saw the tourists on the beach in front suddenly making all kinds of screams and running around with their hands raised, as if everyone had gone crazy. Obviously just now they were enjoying the sun, beach and waves there." "What happened?" Sheely drew out the steel sword vigilantly. "Let's go and have a look." After Levin confirmed that the buffs on both of them were complete, he also pulled out the arcane sword. In order to hide their identities, the two covered their faces with scarves and ran together in the direction of the group of lunatics. After getting closer, he saw that above the crowd, there was a pink bird with wide eyes, flying and singing at the same time. In the crowd, 4 or 5 dwarfs wearing red hats raised wooden sticks and smashed them at the people around them while making weird laughs. "That's the evil bird, and the red hat. That's what they did." Levin immediately recognized the identities of the two creatures and immediately made arrangements. "Ciri, I'll control these people, you go and shut up that bird." "Clear." The owl is a bird native to Africa with unusually bright feathers. Its coat color may be orange, pink, lime green, or yellow. This is a very dangerous creature, and their high-pitched, chirping calls can drive anyone who hears them crazy. If these muggles in front of them are not calmed down, they may become madmen for the rest of their lives. But how to get rid of the influence of the evil bird as quickly as possible? Levin made up his mind instantly. Psychic blast. Levin came to the front of the crowd and directly exploded the power of his mind. Impacted by this violent spiritual power, all the madmen present instantly rolled their eyes, and then fell to the ground neatly. This is his method, to fight violence with violence. Knock them out one by one and they won't hear the birds chirping. Afraid that this might not be safe, Levin gestured against the beach in front of him. Hypnosis pattern. A huge and complicated pattern appeared on the beach, covering everyone present. A few unlucky red hats, who had just been stunned by Levin's psychic blast, finally got up and their eyes met the 350 patterns on the ground. Then, several red hats were deeply fascinated by the patterns, and then fell asleep on the ground one after another, just by grabbing grass and beating rabbits. These evil little monsters were taken care of. At this moment, Ciri over there also completed her task and came to Levin holding an evil bird that was frozen into lumps of ice by Ice Arrow. "Here, this is the guy you want." Levin caught the evil bird and cast a silent and breathless curse on it. After confirming that it had no ability to scream anymore, it was thawed. Immediately afterwards, I began to use the power of the mind to connect to its mind, and used the ability of animal dialogue to ask it questions. "Where is your master?" Evil bird plus red hat. 2 Unrelated magical creatures appear on a beach that is not their habitat. Levin doesn't believe that there is no mastermind behind this. The evil bird is not very intelligent, but it is enough to point Levin in the right direction. Looking along the direction, English saw a towering reef. "Okay, thank you, little guy." Levin touched its feathers. "If you want, you can wait for me here. I will come back to settle you after I deal with your old master." After that, he and Sheely walked towards the reef. According to the perception of the power of the mind, there is indeed a person behind the reef. Chapter 88. A Prepared Battle. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Hearing the footsteps of the two, the person behind the rock remained motionless, seeming to be pretending not to know. Could it be that he is covering his ears? It wasn't until the two came to the reef that Levin understood the reason. After working on it for a long time, this guy wore an invisibility cloak and relied on this to think that others could not see him. It was Levin's spiritual power that discovered his figure through the invisibility cloak, but did not discover the existence of the invisibility cloak. Stop hiding. After looking at the rock for a long time, Sheely finally couldn't hold back and spoke first. We knew you were there. Tell me, wizard, why did you attack the muggles on the beach? Seeing that he could no longer hide himself, the wizard suddenly lifted his invisibility cloak, revealing the appearance of a middle-aged man wearing a square coin underneath. He did not answer Sheely's question, but cursed at the two of them. Italian expletive, I knew you were, Italian expletive, s horrors. A few muggles lured you out. If it weren't for, Italian expletive, traitors, how could you have discovered where I'm hiding? Since you caught me, I won't act anymore. I am a double smuggler from the Aeon Empire and Italy, codenamed Lizard. I smuggled the rune snake, and I also smuggled the Chimera from Italy. But since you have caught it, I will definitely not be able to take it away, but you can't even think about it. The two of them listened to this guy who called himself Salamander talking about his own thoughts and defenses. Levin already has a rough idea of what's going on. He had probably seen them coming on their broomsticks. The other party suspected that the visitors were Aurors, so they created chaos among the muggles to attract the Aurors' attention. After cursing, Salamander suddenly opened a bag. A huge and strange monster suddenly emerged from the bag, with a figure of 2 meters tall, a lion's head, a goat's body, and a fire dragon's tail. It was exactly the target of their trip, the Chimera. This cruel creature saw a human being appearing in front of him as soon as he got out of his cage, thinking that it was these guys who locked themselves in that dark place. The violent Chimera immediately launched an attack. It opened its lion's mouth wide and sprayed poisonous flames towards Levin. Ordinary wizards who are burned by this fire will have to be tortured by the fire poison for a long time even if they are not burned to death on the spot, but Levin actually didn't dodge. He stood directly in front of the Chimera and resisted its breath head-on, as if he couldn't dodge. At least that's how it seems in the eyes of Salamander and Chimera. Just when they thought Levin was about to be burned to coke, a ray of silver light cut through the breath and struck the Chimera beast in the face. A large gash was immediately cut into the lion's face, but before the blood could spurt out, the blood vessels at the wound and half of the face were frozen. This is not to stop the bleeding, but to seal Chimeraman's powerful recovery ability. Otherwise, this gap will only need a minute or two to recover without even a trace of injury. Only then did Levin's figure appear from the smoke of breath. Every part of his body was unscathed, not even the robe had a hint of soot. Since he knew in advance that chimeras were good at breathing, Levin would naturally be prepared. Fireproof aura, plus resistance to energy damage, fire, plus elemental shield, fire. Even if this triple fireproof element can't protect against Snape's magical flames, it can't protect against your mere Chimeraru. This is the so-called prepared war and fight. Once the wizard understands the situation and focuses on targeting it, the suppressive power displayed by the wizard is absolutely beyond imagination. With its face slashed and frozen, the Chimera shook its head in pain, and at the same time it brewed flames again, as if it wanted to directly melt the ice block that hindered self-repair. But Levin didn't give him a chance. His magic was ready, and the seaside was the perfect place to cast it. Black tentacle. Just listen to the sudden fierce sound of water next to the reef. Dozens of black tentacles 7 or 8 meters long and as thick as a thigh suddenly emerged from the sea, like the tentacles of a sea monster, and rolled straight towards the Chimera, tying it into a knot. One tentacle in particular curled directly around its throat, causing its entire breath to be held in its throat. An attempt to melt the ice failed. The Chimera struggled hard to get rid of the entanglement of the tentacles, but this black tentacle has a strength of 19, which is almost the same as the Chimera. You know, the strength value of the Black Dragon of Crete is only in the early 20s. In addition, Black Tentacle is summoned directly from the sea water, and the maintenance time is greatly increased. For a while, the Chimera beast couldn't break free. He couldn't break free, and Levin's chance came. He swung the arcane sword, attached, ice arrow, to it, and then pierced the body of the Chimera beast one by one along the gaps between the tentacles. The Chimera is a terrifying monster with Strong resilience and magic resistance. When ordinary wizards fight it, they often fall into the dilemma that ordinary magic cannot break the defense, and the damage caused by powerful magic cannot keep up with the recovery speed. Even if you are strong enough and can suppress the opponent for a while, you will still be dragged down in a long war of attrition. But Levin's series of tactics completely avoided the Chimera's advantages. He did not use direct attack spells throughout the process, but used spells such as Black Tentacle and Ice Arrow to cause physical and elemental attacks, which completely prevented the Chimera's magic resistance from being used. He also took advantage of the environmental characteristics of the seaside battle and used Black Tentacles to restrain the Chimera beast for a long time. Finally, used the arcane sword, enchanted with Ice Arrow, to bleed the Chimera beast one by one. No matter how strong the Chimeraman's recovery power is, it can't withstand such torture. The smuggler who called himself Salamander was almost frightened when he saw this. He has never seen a wizard single-handedly subdue him in one encounter. For such a powerful wizard, he was definitely no match for him. If he succeeded in killing the Chimera, his own life would be in vain. Wanting to understand this, he raised his wand, intending to launch a sneak attack on Levin to support the Chimera, but Sheely stood up at the right time. "I've been waiting for you for a long time." That the girl stepped forward and waved her left hand. Dragon Breath Technique. That a blazing flame burst out towards the salamander. Make him a real salamander. Of course the smuggler knows that he is not a real salamander. The curse he chanted immediately turned into Iron Armor Curse, which barely blocked the breath, but Sheely was unyielding and slashed with his sword with his right hand, knocking the smuggler staggering. "Damn little girl, try this trick from me." Seeing that the opponent was approaching fiercely, the smuggler opened another package, and dozens of Cornish elves flew out, all heading towards Shirley's face, but Sheely made no move to resist and dispel them at all, as if the elves didn't exist, and the sword edge never left the enemy. She is naturally confident in doing this. The elves wanted to pounce on her and tear her beautiful gray hair. Unexpectedly, each of them seemed to have hit an invisible ice wall. Not only could they not touch Sheely, they themselves were almost frozen. 5 or 6 elves had their wings frozen and fell from the sky, but the scarier thing is yet to come. As the elves continued to harass, from time to time an elf would be swallowed up by a sudden fire, but the source of the fire could not be found. It is exactly the effect of elemental scream. The elf here had nothing to do with Sheely, and the smuggler over there also suffered several injuries from Sheely's continuous sword attacks. It's not that he didn't want to use magic spells to counterattack, but every time he cast a spell, the opponent's free left hand would shoot, Alder's Seal, in front of his face, knocking him off balance and making him completely unable to cast spells. Finally, he couldn't stand it anymore. He realized that he could not defeat the two Aurors in front of him with his own strength. What else is there to say? Run away quickly. After using Iron Armor Curse to fend off another enemy attack, the smuggler distanced himself. "Now that there are no other magical creatures in my body, Wong Noah's, I can directly apparate." The smuggler figured this out and started twisting. The black mist is also swirling around. It is the precursor of apparition. Phantom Transfer. Dimensional Anchor. The smuggler was halfway through his apparition, and a powerful force instantly enveloped the nearby space and sealed it. The movement of disembodiment seemed to hit a solid concrete wall, knocking the smuggler back hard. Caught off guard, the smuggler flipped over and fell to the ground. Just then, Ciri took a step forward, cut off his right hand with a sword, and took away the wand. At this time, the female witcher turned around and looked at the person who had just used the dimensional anchor. Levin was holding the arcane sword, and Sir Shiran was walking towards her. "Where's the Chimera?" she asked. Levin didn't answer and pointed behind him. There, a huge monster corpse fell on the beach, motionless. Ciri could see that the monster's body was covered with dense wounds from sword blades. There were more than 30 that could be seen at a glance, and each wound was surrounded by condensation of frost. This terrifying monster with only one kill record really died in Levin's hands.